I will start with a little bit of a background. So my name is Sophia, and I am really delighted to be here with you today. And I will be presenting on a topic that I teach and research at Northeastern, which is the topic of participatory design combined with new technologies, in this case, AI. So I am a former public sector professional. I started my career working for the Mexico City government and its innovation lab, doing visual communication, implementing design thinking processes. I later on worked for the Mexican federal government digital strategy, using human-centered design methods to digitize and develop novel services for different stakeholders, either internal or external. And I was really fascinated by the relevance of using design methods to iterate and create services that could change and really impact people's lives. So that's when I decided to pursue a PhD on these topics. I did it at Carnegie Mellon. And once I was done with my degree, that's when I joined Northeastern. And as you can see, most of my career, I've been with one foot in the public sector and one in academia, with very much of a practice-based approach. And so I've been really interested in developing projects inside of the university that have relevant social impact outside of the university. And therefore, working with communities is really pivotal and crucial to that work. I am originally from Mexico City, and coming from a city of 22 million people, I really see public services, public education as the place where we can have a really high impact in people's everyday lives. It is the way that we take care of our neighbors, our communities, our cities. And when I worked as a public sector worker in Mexico at the time, we were tackling many issues that had to do with transportation, security, water scarcity, amongst many, many others. And in such a big city, we really needed to serve very different populations. The center of the city looks like the left side, the picture on the left side, but the southern part of the city actually looks like the picture on the right side. So I was really wondering, how can we design services that really help and support very diverse communities? And that, I think, is at the core of my work, and I think it's at the core of the project I'll be presenting today. So why is it that participation, especially in services that have to do with public education, is so important and is crucial, right? Why are these avenues of participation so important? Well, I will just open the chat to have it over here so that I can see also if anything is needed. But let's take, for example, a researcher, a policymaker, a designer, right? And they're trying to define, to understand the problem, a social situation, to take action, to design something that responds to a need and the requirement to mitigate that need, right? And depending on their disciplinary background, personal experiences, or even political views, they might approach the definition of that problem from a very particular stance. Sometimes expertise or personal assumptions may blind us from understanding a problem or situation. And so we need to actually reach out and understand that from the people impacted by the problem, right? The people in most need of that service. So in order to have a more complete idea of what the problem might be or garner solutions, right? Understand the impact of that service, we want to get the input of communities, key actors, and stakeholders to complement the work that we are already doing. So in a bit of an abstract form, we are tackling on a daily basis problems that impact maybe thousands of people, millions of residents, right, in larger cities. And we want to research the problem or situation in order to solve it. We might start doing that with our own research, own understanding of the problem, which shapes that perception of the situation. But then we can complement, including the perspective of relevant stakeholders, key actors, to fill that gap, those spaces where we might not have the expertise or practice. And then we also can complement with the perspective of people experiencing the situation firsthand. First responders, people on the ground, maybe in this scenario, in this situation, teachers, parents, school administrators, etc. Right? Now, there is a lot of talk about participatory design versus co-design practices. And there is a kind of key difference between them that I want to discuss and talk about. When we talk about co-design, we understand the designer, researcher, public sector worker as one key stakeholder defining the problem or developing a design solution. The community is at the front line of the issue and will be another core stakeholder. And then there will be other stakeholders. These could be other public agencies, academics, activists, etc., NGOs, etc. And in a co-design process, they are all at the same level. There is a non-hierarchical collaboration. And that requires to have the same level of input and participation in the definition of the problem, in the devising of the solution, but also in the evaluation of a result or the creation of metrics. So that requires a lot of trust, a lot of cooperation, and therefore co-designing may be more time consuming, require more coordination, negotiation in the process. It might just take longer. In participatory design, the designer, researcher, or public sector worker is in charge of making sense of the data gathered. And it's data gathered from the community and other relevant stakeholders. So there is an actual hierarchy to the process. And it works as a sort of funnel in the decision-making process where opinions, feelings, information about the community and other actors are compiled. And this difference is very important as it determines how much participation there is and if there is a reinterpretation of what is needed in the process. Therefore, a participatory process may be faster, but more responsibility relies in the designer or people making those final choices in a service, in a product, right? So, given that context, I was just wondering before I talk about the project that we are developing and designing at the Burn Center, um, is engaging communities central to your work, to your professional perhaps experience at the moment? And if so, why? And if not, why not? What is there a reason for that? And I would love to read you on the chat. You might consider engagement and participation differently depending on your constituents, your communities, the people you work with. So yes, it is absolutely central. Anyone else? All right. We can talk about this further down the line during the Q&A. But the reason I like to introduce, oh, sorry. Yvonne is saying, as a public school teacher, the community is a vital part of educating the students, the importance of their feeling a stake in what happens at the school. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think that connection between the school as a teacher and then parents, the community is so important. And I would love to hear more about how you've been engaging the community in that context. I think the reason why I like to start my talks with kind of setting the ground about participation is because in the project that we have been developing regarding IEPs, it is a central part of it. Parents are co-designing this project with us, and that has meant that a lot of trust and a lot of kind of work between them, our collaborators in California, and us has been put in order to be able to really translate into a digital tool the needs of the parents. So the project I will be talking about is the AIEP project. We recognized with our collaborators in California, Innovate Public Schools, that individualized education programs or plans, which are really meant to support children with a disability, are often lengthy documents, more than 50 pages long. They are filled with terminology that might be complex for parents, and they become a bit challenging to navigate, right? It can be very overwhelming, especially going into an IEP meeting. So we decided to co-design a digital tool that would support parents in navigating this process. So with the engagement, direct engagement of parents and caregivers, our team is actually building a free, completely open source AI power tool that has a different set of features. The first one is to translate IEPs into multiple languages. The second one is to simplify complex educational jargon. The third one is to summarize key information. And the fourth one is to support parents by creating personalized recommendations and meeting checklists for them. Our aim is to engage 100 parents for feedback, but we are working with a core group of parents as co-designers throughout this project. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next couple of slides. Beyond that core of parents that are supporting us and with the 100 parents we are aiming for feedback, we are also aiming to socialize the tool with at least 1,000 parents from now until the end of the year. And so we have been working, especially with parents whose first language might not be English, and to really support them throughout the IEP process. This is a team, this is a core team that is supporting the development of the tool. It is a multidisciplinary team composed of academics, but also our collaborators from Innovate Public Schools. And we have a great team of developers that are also working on the tool, fully participating in the meetings with the parents in order to understand their feedback. Experts on AI literacy, because that is a big component of this as well. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I wanted to show you some just images of the prototype that we've been building. The prototype basically works as a website, and you can log in with an individualized and secure account. You can choose a language of your choice. Right now, we are working with the Main for Languages in the San Francisco area, where our partners are based, which are English, Spanish, Mandarin, and Vietnamese. Parents are able to upload their IEP, summarize and translate the information of the document, and learn more about their rights when attending meetings with school administrators, teachers, therapists, etc. We created basically a mirror of the outline of a document. And for example, we give them information for each one of those sections of the document. So about the students, accommodation, goals, services, placement, etc. We provide a set of just an overview of their right as parents. And right now, I should mention that what I'm showing you here is the first prototype, but we've been able to iterate quite a few times thanks to parents' feedback. And right now we're on the fourth prototype. So this has been improved from this first version. And I'll show you the improvements in a minute. We have conducted a series of focus groups and conversations with parents in San Francisco, thanks to our partner community-based organization, Innovate Public Schools. And we've been able to really understand what features of the tool and the design are working for them and what they would like to see more. It was really important for us to share that outline of the document, even the summaries that the tool was providing, and testing them with our parents, right? And get their feedback. And from there, we've been able to collect from the different focus groups feedback that we then categorize from things that we can basically implement the next day to things that we need to develop and work on in a little larger kind of like longer term commitment. But basically, those focus groups and that participatory approach has really helped us to make core changes in adjustments to the language that we were using in English and in Spanish, the modifications to our base survey to understand who our audience is, improvements to the prototype's navigation, and changes on how the summaries are generated, the content. So in order to be more accurate on the sort of summaries that we were providing, given that this is an AI-powered tool, we designed a process that we've been calling internally unboxing the prompt. So basically what we do is that a very long prompt, that is what we use to search the documents and gain the relevant information for the summary to be created. We've been socializing and sharing that prompt with parents and key stakeholders, IEP experts, in order to add key terminology to the prompt and make those processes more robust. So for example, terms as parent concerns or student strengths and preferences have been things that we've been getting out of socializing the prompt and that have been helping us to make the summaries more robust. So you can see here a comparative of the sort of changes before and now that we've been socializing the prompt. We also made tweaks to the architecture of the tool. So we are now using an agentic architecture, which basically means that the tool is looking for relevant information given the terminology on the prompt. But then if it doesn't find it, it goes back again and searches again. Not only that, it has been allowed us to gain a lot of details on the summaries. You can see, for example, in this case for the accommodations, it is giving us very specific information on the sort of accommodations given, instructional accommodations, testing accommodations, assistive technology, settings, etc. While before, it was just giving us a very broad overview. Another key element of our tool that we've been able to implement is, and that was very important for parents, was seeing the summary, but then being able to point to specific pages of the document where they could find the information that the tool was summarizing. And this was really important for them when going into IEP meetings because they really wanted to be sure that the tool was giving them the correct information, right? If needed, they could point to specific page and a specific reference in the document. Now, in this prototype, you can see the pages that are referenced in the summary are listed at the top of the tool. However, we are working right now in shifting the UX, the interface, the design of the interface to actually show the paragraphs and the parts of the document that the tool is pulling from in order to create this summary. Now, Some of the parents gave us really good feedback regarding just connections and people. Sometimes they were not sure who would be present at the meetings, who would be key stakeholders, key actors and people that were relevant in their case of their kid. So they wanted a section just to provide key people connected to their case. And we decided to provide the names and roles, but not display any contact information. But we do point parents in to the direction of the appropriate pages where they can find the contact information for those key actors. One of the biggest things that we were advised by parents and that they wanted to see since the beginning of the development of the tool were definitions of key terms, given that the language was complex and many times they were navigating these in a second language, right? So we decided to provide key definitions for key terms, but not have it as a separate kind of glossary, right? But really make it interactive and easy to navigate. So this is, again, a prototype of how we are doing it. But this has become really important. Parents have told us that they feel more secure when they can actually read a definition directly there on a word that they don't understand. And sometimes that even has to do perhaps with the diagnosis, right? Sometimes the diagnosis is not fully clear to them. So being able to just hover and see a quick definition gives them a certain sense of security. Finally, as you can see on the screen, and I saw a question pop up about kind of managing data and data privacy. That was one of the most important parts of developing this tool. You can see personal information is redacted. Uh, for us, it was very, very, very important to protect people's data. And therefore, we created a set of barriers or guardrails within the tool. So once a document is uploaded, the information is extracted from the PDF document by the tool, and it is automatically redacted. And once the document is redacted, the actual PDF that has been uploaded is deleted, fully deleted from our tool. So that doesn't exist within our on our side anymore. We just have the information that has been extracted from the document and it is redacted. And it is using that redacted information that we create the summaries. And once the parent or the caregiver, the person using the tool, decides to log out of the tool, everything, including the redacted summaries and the redacted information, is fully deleted from the tool. So we decided to create these set of kind of guardrails just to make sure and be sure that we were protecting people's personal information. And given that AI has had a boom, but is still a very novel thing, we recognized that we needed to address a digital literacy gap, and we wanted to provide a lot of support in that front. So we are working very closely with what we call parent navigators or parent co-designers, who are actually then kind of functioning or working as a sort of ambassadors for the tool. We are training them on the use of AI, on how AI is powering the tool. And then they are going out and talking to other parents about the topic and training them. So we have this train the trainer model, which I think is also very empowering for parents that have been wanting to be more involved in the process and that have been willing to lend us their time to co-design this tool. Now, in order to support them and to make this more accessible, so kind of in tandem with our train the trainer model, we are developing a 40-minute course divided in 8 5-minute videos on the basics of AI and how parents can use the tool and AI to advocate for their children's education. And because we want to really meet parents where they're at, and the community, specifically the community that we're working with in California, um, uses WhatsApp as their core tool to communicate, to work, etc. We decided that that would be the platform that we would use to communicate with them and to deliver the course. So we've been building also a prototype of a chatbot that delivers the course through a set of videos paired with quiz questions. And towards the end of the completion of the training course, we will provide a certificate of completion. So I think given this example, I I think there's a couple of ways that we can think of AI and AI supporting us throughout the process. AI has been really useful in the qualitative data that we've been gathering. And I think this is because AI is really good at analyzing interviews, open-ended surveys, or even information gathered in focus groups. It's helpful to detect patterns, recurring themes, emotions, friction points, especially when we're doing user experience research. It is also very helpful just to transcribe, summarize recordings of sessions. Now, the same way that we were very careful about data privacy with the tool, we are also careful on what we input on different AI tools to support us on the research process. And therefore, I think a tip that I would also always recommend is ensuring that any material integrated into a Gen AI platform, a generative AI platform, is anonymized or fully redacted. It is also very, very helpful in generating initial versions of user experience maps that can later on serve as a foundation when we want to map a certain service through a blueprint, for example. It can suggest touch points with our final community members, our users, key interactions, backstage and front stage areas based on data or customer feedback, user feedback. Um, and something that I also like to recommend is that we ensure that that experience map is always based on interviews, surveys, data collected beforehand. So we're not asking the tool to invent or create something from scratch for us. It's actually just using it to help us make sense of the data we've collected. Given that those maps, it can actually be a very, very powerful tool in predicting analyses or simulations. It can predict bottlenecks, wait times, critical service points, or it can simulate changes if we want to make a change to a certain pipeline or to the service provided, right? So what happens if we automate this part of the service or the process? And again, because we are building this on top of our already done map, which is built on top of our data and our interviews and our collected information, then we're not inventing anything, right? We're just building on top of the work that we've already done. It can also be very powerful in assisting with visualizations. Some tools, in this case, I'll talk about GPT-4, but there's other tools out there that can help as well. Have integrations to Figma, for example, if we're doing digital prototypes, Miro, Lucy charts. And I think it's always, as a good practice, check whatever it is the AI is helping you create in visual form so that we can make any necessary modifications, any edits. And then documentation. A lot of the times I like to work on spreadsheets, on just Word documents, because they are very easy to upload to some of these tools. And then you can directly ask questions about the document to the tool. So for example, with summaries, with documentation of what has been happening, it can help us create summaries of the development of the tool. So I just want to wrap up and finish by quickly going through some considerations on the use of AI. especially in the public sector and especially for education and in the realm of education. AI tools are really powerful in processes of code design, but they should enhance it, not replace it. So it should complement collaborative practices. And it's really good at supporting idea generation, as I said, data analysis, prototyping, but decisions should really remain in human hands and with the communities we are working with. We have a commitment to inclusivity and accessibility. So we need to take digital divides into account and digital literacy gaps into account, especially when we're integrating new technologies into some of our processes. Equity and bias mitigation, we want to do that throughout the development of new tools. We know it is very well documented that Gen AI can reproduce biases, so it is very important, it is essential to audit outputs. Data use and protection, as I mentioned before, that was extremely important for our team. So data protection regulations must be followed, and we need to be transparent about how collected data will be used. There is also a commitment to explainability and traceability. AI systems and how we are using them must be understandable. And that's why the training component of our project is so important for us. We want parents to be able to understand how we are using AI so that they can actually give us a kind of like substantial feedback on the tool. And at the same time, it was core on how we developed the tool. That's why we developed the unboxing, the prompt piece of it. Iteration and feedback, I think that's kind of core and basic to any design and participatory design process. But really taking into account, well, once we get feedback from 100 parents, how are we going to process it? How are we going to make sense of it and implement changes to the tool? So that's part of the protocol that we are currently developing, because we want to be able to point to the moments where we made changes to the tool and that those changes were connected to feedback from parents. So the traceability, explainability part is connected to this. Capabilities, no, it's essential just to train public officials, citizens in digital literacy, right? And critical use of AI. Maintenance, how are we going to maintain and give support in especially with new technologies? So at least in this first part of the project, we've created a set of what we're calling office hours every Friday throughout the summer until September, where members of our community, parents in California, can actually connect with our team, and they will always have at least one researcher and one developer present during office hours, so they can ask questions directly to the people who are doing this, the people kind of designing this, but at the same time, they can give feedback directly to the people implementing changes to the tool. And finally, ethical use of AI that is aligned with public values. And I think in that sense, this is a bit more from a personal interpretation of public values, but implementation should be guided by an ethical framework of equity, justice, transparency, and common good, right? This should be something that benefits everyone. So with that being said, I know we have around 20 minutes left, and I would love to wrap up with a Q&A, but also with a conversation. I would love to hear your thoughts on how you would define a responsible use of AI in your professional context. If you can think of an example where AI or data analytics doesn't necessarily need to be AI, was used in your work, and it has helped to move the needle in a positive way. What made it work? And also, what sort of challenges or tensions you've experienced in trying to use AI in your professional context, and why you think that is? And I'm more than happy to post these 3 questions on the chat so that you have them at hand. And with that being said, again, I'm happy to take questions. I'm delighted to be here with you today, and thank you very much.